Welcome back everybody, and we're going to move on to the third robot master in the lineup that I'm going to be choosing, and that would be Stoneman. Now Stoneman's level is very interesting in its design. It's like it starts you off going from left to right, and then it loops itself back around almost to the beginning. It's a really weird level layout, not to mention it's also freakishly long. I like the fact that the designer, Darkling Wolf, decided to include some Megaman 9 enemies, because at the time of initial production, Megaman 9 had just been released, so Megaman and of course Tornado Man decided to make the cut, as well as some enemies from the actual game itself made their way into the actual final product. So that was kind of a nice little late game insertion, or late planning production insertion. As I mentioned, this level is freakishly long. Most of it seems fair from what I've played, and it doesn't really seem too long and drawn out. As a whole, I mean, you don't really get fully bored of it, because there's always something new, a new obstacle or new danger that comes up that hasn't been, you know, gone over in detail earlier in the level. Now, this is interesting. I really like this split setup here, so you get to choose if you want to go on the upper path or the lower path. Neither is harder than the other, I would say, but you do have access to some health items on the top path. And the bottom path just requires a lot more precise platforming. Beyond that, there's really no change. And here's Eddie again. Not as useful as usual. Now these little driller enemies here, they act very differently from their counterparts in Mega Man 4. In Mega Man 4, they just kind of rose their drills up and down in like a rhythm. Here, they just raise them up and then provide a blockade for you. So that's vastly different. And there's your master tank there, and if you want to summon the Rush Coil, you'll find out that Rush cannot be summoned on spikes in this game. So that prevents you from utilizing certain, you know, cheats and exploits to try and get items. So you have to come back with the proper item that you know, the designer wants you to have. Now this is tricky. This actually got me several times. Yeah, that enemy at the end there is placed so perfectly that it could catch you off guard and drop you into the abyss, and you have to start all over from the beginning. Now here is the first mid-boss battle with one of the X-Hunters. You get a nice little dialogue before the battle, demonstrating some of their personality. And of the three, this guy is definitely the fastest. And due to his nature, the only thing that could probably catch him off guard is something that slows down time, which would be, of course, the Centaur Flash. That is his weakness. Now, here's the interesting thing. I am not going to kill him with the Centaur Flash, because I actually want to show something as proof of concept later. In the Wily stages later, if you don't kill the the Mega Man killers in the Robot Master stages with their weakness, they will show up later in the Wily stages. However, if you blow them completely away with their weakness, then they will not show up again, and they are completely gone from the rest of the game. So just a nice little detail that. So if you actually know their weakness, you can completely get rid of them. And now we're into the second half of this long stage. And here is a Power Massler. I usually just avoid them unless I have their weakness. And now we're getting into a rather platform-heavy segment of the level. Starting with this screen. Now you want to take this slow and one at a time and give the floating enemies plenty of time to maneuver onto screen. And I forgot that I died on this take. That was embarrassing. I had recorded this a while ago, and now I'm commentating on it several days later, so I'll splice ahead. So yeah, you want to give these enemies some time to come onto screen before you move on to the next platform. Sometimes you don't always have that time to maneuver, but more often than not you do, like specifically right here. As you jump to each one, move ahead a little bit and wait for the enemy to come on screen. And ooh, this one is the trickiest one. And here's the split in the road for the latter half of the level. But for now, you can only go south, or down, and you encounter a new enemy not found much else in the level, and that is the drills. And they are instant kill. Thankfully, they don't take a lot of hits, but they're basically there for shock value. If you don't know they're coming, they will kill you. Simply put. And there's an E-tank out of reach, plus some point balls. And there's 1,000 points off to the left there. Rush Jet is probably the best item to use to get that point ball. And here's a temporary midpoint, I recall, because I died in a previous run after this point, and you get restart there. Again, if you're not expecting it, you might die from some more drills. And this is interesting. You can actually avoid the second drill by going down underneath it. Not really crucial or necessary, but just the fact that you can is kind of cool. Now, one thing of note that I haven't mentioned with these platforms, you can jump and you can move around on these platforms, but you cannot fire as long as you're touching these spinning platforms. That can be kind of crucial in certain situations, so be aware of that. And we are done with this long stage, and it is now time for Stoneman, which I feel is actually quite easy to beat. However, unlike any other Robot Master in this game, he hits like a frickin' truck. Not necessarily with his... Oh wow. Yeah, see that? Look at that massive damage. Most Robot Masters go for 5 damage units apiece if you come into physical contact with their bodies. Not so with Stoneman. He is actually the exception. I think it's more like 7 or 8 units of damage. He is a bruiser, and he hurts a lot. So if you get stuck and he slams down on you, well, you're in for some painful hurt, really. And there you go. Case in point. So he's not terribly tough. His AI is actually pretty easy to combat. But if you make mistakes, he is the only Robot Master who will make you pay dearly for that mistake. At about 7 or 8 units of health damage. So I guess that's one way of making this rather simple boss a lot harder, is upping the damage. Yeah, I kind of like this little section where he's coming up from the ground and throwing off random chunks of rock and stuff. That's kind of a cool idea. That reminds me a little bit of like Drill Man in a way, and a couple other, I think, Megaman X bosses here and there. I can't recall off the top of my head, but that's a cool little gimmick. True to his Mega Man 5 incarnation, he does like to jump around a lot and try and stomp you. But here he does actually have a couple extra attacks, which greatly enhances lethality. But on the whole, he's not too hard a boss. That's probably the hardest attack to dodge, is what he just did before he collapsed into the ground. And with that, one of the longest stages in the game is complete, and we have a rather useful weapon. Not so much in its utility for attacking enemies, but more so for finding alternate paths in other levels. They did improve the weapon by having it circle around you a couple times before expanding outward, but as a whole, it's still not an exceptionally good weapon. It's just decent. But yep, we have the Spike Guard, which is very useful, and then another E-tank, and then one of our first M-tanks to find. Okay, this one, we want to Tornado Blow up to the level of the block, and then hit it with the Night Crush. That's the only thing that'll get rid of those metal blocks. And then you can Rush Coil, or however else you want to get up there. Now this is tricky. The Rush Jet is the only item I found to actually get past this point. I don't know of any other upgrade that'll allow you to get past that overhang. Now, you really want to go up, but we're going to go right briefly just for the 1-up and maybe a 1,000-point ball. This is a little tricky. You got to jump off real quick, and there's your 1-up. I think I need to reset these. Now you want to do this next jump off this platform perfectly, which I failed to do. But if I were to do it right, you would go all the way to the right here and get that 1,000-point block. And if you are to jump off to the right, you actually would fall down below onto the main path of the level and towards the midpoint boss room. But we're not going to do that. We're going to go head back and take the other route up. Yeah, other than the rush jet, there really is no easy way back. So it's kind of like a one-way unless you have an upgrade to go back the other way. And yes, you will need Magma Bazooka to get through to the next part. And case in point, the Rain Flush is awesome against the Power Master. It is his ultimate weakness. One shot from the Rain Flush can kill them in like nobody's business. So if you're having trouble with them, or you're just avoiding them because you don't want to deal with them, try a Rain Flush. They'll be so much easier. And this is our one and only Master Tank for the level. And we just loop back up to the main path towards the midpoint room. Now this is the second split in the latter half of the level. You can do the Rush Coil, Yamato Spear, Rush Jet, however you want to get up there. And if you want those power-ups, you can get them. And another split in the same screen. You can take the upper path or the lower path. Lower path is a little trickier, upper path a little easier, but in the end it doesn't really matter, it gets you to the same place. Now this part requires precision and quick reflexes. You have got to keep up with this platform. If you don't have the Rush Jet, you're not going to get very far if the platform outpaces you. And then here's another split on the alternate route. Off to the left there, you're going to need the Yamato Spear, but for now we're going to go off to the right. There's a 500-point ball, you can get it with the Rush Jet. Maybe some clever, tricky use of the Tornado Blow. Yeah, I wasn't going to chance those guys getting near me. Now, you can make this jump easily. However, I'm just not going to chance it, so I decided to do the Rush Jet instead. But then you use the Tornado Blow to get up to this little alcove here with the energy tank. But even without the Tornado Blow, you can still do it with the Rush Jet or even the Rush Coil. And this just loops you back around. And case in point, I'll show you that you can't get to this 1,000 ball unit with just the Rush Jet alone. Going back to the alternate path split again, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to need the Yamato Spear. I really like the concept of using the spear as an actual temporary platform. That opens up a lot more possibilities and tactical situations and advantages, especially during boss battles. So it's like a limited form of wall jumping, similar to Megaman X. Now here you're going to need the Tornado Blow, because if you make a mistake falling down, the Tornado Blow is what's going to save you, like right there. And what's your prize for doing all that craziness? The Spike Guard. You can use the Rush Coil if you place it right, but the Yamato Spear is the best way to get it. And this puts you right near the end part of the boss. Okay, now for an Easter egg. This one is deviously hidden. This is just past the midpoint of the level. And you'll want to take the Rush Jet all the way to the left here and jump onto this small platform. Slide through and you're on the path to the Easter egg. get up this area however you choose, and then tornado blow your way off to the left, and then quickly brake right. Now this part is tricky. This actually requires a little forethought. You're going to need the Yamato Spear or a tornado blow that you shot just before you got onto that platform, because remember, you can't shoot while you're on one of the platforms. Then here you have to tornado blow off to the left because of the overhang. So this whole area is rather tricky and requires your extensive knowledge on how the weapons work. And I'm trying to remember, this is Megaman X, and you get to kill him, and I'm trying to remember what, I think it's Star Crash. Yep, Star Crash is the weapon that kills Megaman X here. So another bonus Easter egg for those who explore in depth. Kind of fun, that. And you actually avoid the entire jumping sequence past midpoint entirely. Very cool level skip there.